What's going on, everyone? This is RawMatt Radio, episode number 1. Today we're going to have some fun, and I found something interesting, and I was kind of excited because it was the first time I've seen such a long critique of my work, and I was really excited that, oh, they're going to choose a more recent video, not something, 5 years old, and maybe it'll be, some type of a new argument. So they had a panel on 6 deep, all of the main critics that hate young Earth creation with a passion, live and breathe it. One has a radio podcast designed for anti-young Earth creation. Dapper Dino lives for young Earth creation. Every like second video is against Kent. Erica has dedicated her life to it. Dr. Dan, he admitted that this is for political reasons, so he's all about it now. And we're going to jump into the video, but I already went through it. You would not believe how much of a waste of time this was. I was utterly shocked, considering I thought they had actually taken the entire list that I'm going to show you and go real quick, like point by point, and go over everything, because the list is great. They did not do that. So if we start here at the 8:35, where I first saw an image of us sitting here, they start talking, and they don't get into anything for literally 30 minutes. And since we start to get here, this is the list. And I thought, okay, maybe they'll just start at the top and work their way down. That never happens. They pick a video about mutation saturation, a newer video that I released called, Evolution Destroyed, something real simple and basic. And it's about mutation saturation. And that video was pretty interesting. It's real short, 12 minutes. Should have been something they could have covered easily in, let's double that amount of time, because there's a lot of people on the panel. Let's give them, matter of fact, let's triple that amount of time. How long do you think it took them? It took them 2.5 hours to finally get through it. It ends right here at around like 10 hours and 30 minutes. It's insanity how long it took. And the interesting part is the first 30 minutes was nothing but just jokes and name calling and mocking. No science at all. And it doesn't get much better. I'll give props to Dapper Dino, because he was the only one out of everyone on the panel that literally attempted to do anything. And what he said makes no sense. We're going to go over that in just a minute. But it was about this video right here. And I'm not going to play it. You guys, if you know me, you know the video. And you know what we have to say about it. So it kind of speaks for itself. We've used this argument in the past. So anybody else that might be new to it, we can cover it pretty simply. But I'm going to jump over to the comments just to make sure that nobody's joining and seeing this. And I'm going to ignore them. Okay, so I've got a lot up right now. So I don't want to mess anything up. So we will go over to what Dapper says about mutation saturation, and then we'll cover it real quick. And 9 hours, 30 seconds. It's hard to get directly on because they're so long. No, he's not. He's not comparing the most recent common ancestors to only humans. That makes no sense. He's comparing the split from when humans split from chimpanzees. They've accrued mutations in their line for 7 million years, and humans have accrued mutations in their line for 7 million years. We still are alive today. They are still alive today. So therefore, how many mutations should we expect there to be, and how many do we see? This is very, very simple. So most of the time, when we're looking at a genetic bottleneck, it's a reset of genetic diversity. So we can only go back to 200,000 years and know exactly what mutations are. That's exactly what we've done. We've gone back, we've used the evolutionary timeline. None of this is young Earth creation stuff, by the way. And what we've done now is we've gone back in time and said, okay, look at this. We've got 65 mutations on average, looking at the chimpanzee line, and then about 10 mutations maximum in humans, going back to a global ice age. This is after 200,000 years. Okay, now what do we do when we go back to, let's say, a bottleneck 200,000 years ago? Or, matter of fact, since they mention this later, they think that there was the Catawba catastrophe, which would have reduced the human population to around 2,000. Okay, well, that would be a massive genetic bottleneck, but that would make matters worse, because now we have 65 mutations accruing in the chimpanzee line after the bottleneck just in 75,000 years, not 200,000 years. So that number becomes much worse after we added up all the way to 7 million, going back to Sahelanthropus. And now we have a much higher number already. So their number is already way too high. Now it's exponentially much higher because they've just reduced the global bottleneck to the Catawba catastrophe. So you can see why that would be a problem. And so I respect that Dapper actually tried, but let me actually let him keep talking. I don't know why Dan laughs. He shouldn't be supporting the wrong position. I mean, if he's read Evograd's blog, Evograd himself says, yes, this is a problem. Like, he didn't figure it out whatsoever. And so these guys aren't going to do it, because if this is the first time they're hearing about it, and it's from me who's not good at conveying it, apparently, then how are they going to refute it? It makes literally no sense. I'm using evolutionary numbers. None of this is young Earth creation stuff. So he can't even get like the basic principle or the concept of why this is occurring. So let's keep going. Okay, so we're talking about Dapper here, so I didn't remember her tuning in. So if Neanderthals are human beings, then we can't use Nathaniel Jensen's numbers. We'll get to that, matter of fact, because by adding Neanderthal to it, which are hyper mutated, you actually speed the mutation rate up, and it makes evolution even worse. So their concept in their mind is still this evolutionary lineage of lines of subhumans evolving into humans. So therefore, it would be a problem, since they're living at on the same side of the bottleneck as we are, coming off the ark. Then we can easily add them to it, and it's just going to make evolution even worse, because now we have a lineage of people that mutated rapidly and then died. Okay, I've gone off of this now. So Dapper was saying that we need to set the mitochondrial most recent common ancestor to humans, but to 100,000 years. That makes no sense, unless we want to take into the Toba catastrophe. If we do that, that makes this whole scenario much, much worse for them. So now Dapper wants us to ignore any DNA differences that build up in the human lineage after the split, all the way down to the last bottleneck. But why would we ignore them? Was there no genetic diversity occurring in the chimpanzee line for 7 million years into modern day? Was there no genetic diversity increasing from Heidelbergensis to human beings, from Homo erectus to Homo habilis to maybe the Australopithecines to Sahelanthropus? None of these were accruing mutations that were being passed on into the new species that was evolving to eventual modern humans. Of course it was. That's why this paradox exists in the evolutionary community, and that they ignore. But the experts agree there is a problem. There should be much more diversity. Why isn't there? Only the atheist online critics say it's not a problem. Everyone else in the reality of the world actually agrees there is a problem. But I'll let you guys deal with that one. So why are we not counting any of these mutations going back to the split that took place? Why do we ignore any genetic diversity that may have risen in all of these and only look at the modern remnants of humans from the last 75,000 to 200,000 years? That makes zero sense. Of course, we want to look at the evolutionary timeline when we're looking at evolutionary claims. They don't fit. That's the whole point of this. Over 7 million years, we would expect to find far more differences than we do find today. That's obvious. This is why it's a paradox, okay? Simple. So now, this next one that Erica's getting into is if Neanderthals are human, we cannot use Jensen's numbers. Okay, so, I mean, we can. They've lived at the same time as us. So let's take a look at how would we know if they were on the same side of this bottleneck, or were they before us and we came from them? When we look at the top is a human being and the bottom is a Neanderthal. Now the top, I used red arrows. I should have used green. I will fix this later. The bottom shows you that there is a mutation that is not in the human. This human right here has no mutation in that region. The Neanderthal does. These are the maximum amount of mutations that I could find. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 mutations on average in the CO1 gene, which is cytochrome C, by the way. So this is a highly conserved region, and there's only 6 mutations separating us from them. Not many. So now if we rewind this clock, we go back to a convergence point of the same scenarios, the same code, the same sequences. But if they were before us in the bottleneck, they would have an entirely different sequence because they would have mutations we would not recognize. We wouldn't even know if these were mutations because we couldn't compare them. Remember, genetic bottlenecks reset genetic diversity. So how would we even be able to distinguish a mutation in them unless we knew what wasn't a mutation to begin with? We have to know that. And that's what makes this genetic boundary study so amazing, is that animals have their own genetics that branch off into new species, and we can track them all back to a single one, or some have many, like maybe dogs. So for example, I did run some on canines, and coyotes, wolves, and dogs all share the exact same dog kind ancestor. Foxes fell outside of it. So there was a fox kind on the ark. When I looked at bears, bears had multiple different kinds on the ark. They did not all converge into a single bear kind. Interesting. I would have thought they would have until I looked at all the sequences. So apparently I don't know what a bear kind is, or I didn't. Now I do. Very interesting. Here's one that shows that all cats are related and they all do share the same sequence. And the reason we know is because when the mutation occurs in these sequences, they don't become fixed. They're random. So we can see what a pure sequence would look like. And then we can see if all of them that are mutated converge on one another, and they do. So using that criteria, we can say, oh, look, this is a non-mutated region that is different than the gorilla region. And so therefore, when we go backwards in time, there isn't a conversion. There isn't a convergence linking us into that bottleneck. And because there is no convergence, which is pretty obvious, that means there are genetic boundaries. This isn't some limiting genetic factor that's separating these species from mixing or breeding, or there's none of that. That's what this genetic boundary actually shows and what it actually is. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. We can show human with chimpanzee. I've run it on a couple of things already. Here's human and Heidelbergensis, for example. Not a lot of mutations total, but look at this, pure non-mutated region. So if a Heidelbergensis lived before the bottleneck and humans came from them, they would have passed on mutations that we would have inherited. Then the bottleneck would have erased that, and we would now have that same sequence and then more mutated regions after that. That's not what we see. So they must have lived on this side of the bottleneck with us. And we would say that this would be a phenotypic look of what Noah would have looked like, mixed between Heidelbergensis and Erectus. They would have what we would describe as what's the good name? I wrote it down as a note. I can't. It's eluding me right now. Man, I make a lot of notes. I don't even know why I make these notes. I don't even look at them. They are robust features. Evolutionists come along and they say these are primitive features. But I guarantee if you lived outside like people would, and you would pick features that you would want to live in that setting, you would choose those features. So they're not primitive, they're robust. So big difference in what we're describing. Check the comment sections. Check it. All right. I'm obviously not going to go through 3 hours of nonsense because, as I told you, that what I just described to you, Dapper Dino, it was the only argument against that entire video that I have on mutation saturation. Literally nothing else is answered. So we'll skim through it real quick. Okay, real quick. Dapper says selection at 9 hours, 3 minutes, and 7 seconds. Dapper says that selection is removing mutations, so none of this matters. Basically, what he's saying is we can't look at the mutations arising today and expect that selection won't remove them. So we cannot expect to get mutation rates from that. But here's the thing. That has no bearing on mutation saturation whatsoever, because we would still see them arising even if the rate was half the speed. And then you cut that in half again and do that 20 times, and they're still too fast and it's still too much. Ask yourself, is genetic diversity increasing? Yes, it is. That's how we determine whether or not that's what evolution is. It's genetic diversity. It's increasing. So yes, we know mutations are still arising. Is it stagnant in anything? No. Is there any animal or fish or anything that alive that selection works so good and it's so strong that it just constantly removes mutations as they're being added? Of course not. Genetic diversity is still increasing. It's going up. So no, genetic diversity is increasing in all life. Because it's increasing, we can be sure that mutations are adding up and up and up. And that's what this entire video is about. Because if it's going up and up and up, then it's eventually going to be saturated. Get the point? Get the thing? You can't have 7 million years of mutations being slowly added or rapidly added and not reach mutation saturation, even if it's reset. Every time there's a bottleneck, it just resets itself. It would still be occurring. And every time it's being reset, it gets that much different every time there's, let's say, a bottleneck every 1 million years. 7 times every 1 million years, if there's a reset, guess what? That's diversity occurring over 1 million years. Then it's reset. Then another round of diversity for another 1 million years. Then it's reset again. That's causing more separation between us and them and chimpanzees. So why isn't it more diverse? If 7 million years actually passed, it's not. That's the paradox. Do you understand? So, anyway, I just rant. So if it's going up and up and up, and it's at its current rate, and we use the evolutionary dates, then we cannot have the results that we have. And it's that simple. Remember, adding mutations up over time, that's how evolution even works. So it's odd to me that they're now all of a sudden against it because it now refutes their position. I'm not really surprised by that, but it's pretty ironic, isn't it? That they're all about, saying mutations are what cause evolution to happen. They're the base layer print for everything that occurs in evolution. It's your foundation. But now that they're actually causing diversity to the point where it's going to saturate the mitochondria, now we can't have that anymore. Now selection is removing them every time they arise. Oh, how convenient is that? So then we move on to 9 hours, 3 minutes, 37 seconds. Dan says Nathaniel Jensen said the substitution rate is the same as the mutation rate. And he goes, no, it's not. Well, you don't need Nathaniel Jensen's comments to find out that, yes, this is in the peer-reviewed literature as well. So it doesn't matter if Jensen said it or not. He believes it, but it's also backed by the peer-reviewed research, so it really doesn't matter. Then Mr. Anderson came on and said, pedigree studies, when you go back in time, the further deep-rooted you get, the slower that mutation rate becomes. Now, we've gone over that, but obviously he didn't watch. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to watch content all day long either. It kind of gets boring. You got to have some fun sometimes. But when you're just constantly saying the same thing. Okay, no problem. I'll just keep saying the same thing as well. Let's look at something that has a deeper rooted pedigree than humans, because you can't get a 50 generation human line going back because you don't have blood samples 50 generations. That would be thousands of years ago. So what do we have? We luckily have animals. And because we have animals, there are animals with short generation times, and those short generation times allow us to now look at a mutation rate outside of human beings. And guess what? We have that in chickens. We have two separate lineages of chickens that go back 50 years. And the mutation pedigree rate study showed exactly the same thing as the humans did, and falls in exactly the same rate, which is 15 to 20 times faster than expected, according to the evolutionary timeline that goes back just thousands of years. Apparently, chickens landed exactly the same as humans. Why? Why would they do it? That's the deepest rooted pedigree study they've ever done on chickens, and it's the exact same as humans. So it really just doesn't matter. There's other ones: water fleas, fruit flies, worms. You can just see the studies that exist, but the chickens is a great one because of how deep rooted it is. So next, 9 hours, 28 minutes, 48 seconds. Don't make illustrations. They told me to not make images like this. They're like, these kind of images are, for whatever reason, lame or whatever. Why would I not make images? That is crazy. As a video editor, you know how boring it is to just show people things like this? Oh yeah, look at these charts. Look at these charts. Oh, how exciting. How exciting. Oh, look. Oh, well, whoop-de-doo. You've already fallen asleep. I've showed you like 3. Of course I'm going to make images. It's ridiculous. I don't know. They just like to complain. They don't like us at all. They don't like that we're young Earth creationists. I guaranteed if I dropped over to evolution tomorrow, I'd be on their panel tomorrow. I'd have the invite. So who cares? 9 hours, 30 minutes, 20 seconds. They're just laughing at the chart, not understanding the numbers. What chart? The one I was showing you earlier, if I can even find it. The one that I made showing the Earth. And it was one of my first ones. So what I did is I created this chart to show you what 7 million years looks like and what 200,000 years looks like. So I showed in the study that the humans accrued a maximum of 10 mutations in the CO1, or the cytochrome C region, and chimpanzees got an average 65, some higher. So I just went with the average. And we go back to a global ice age, what the study showed, and then there's a genetic reset. So then we extrapolate back another 200,000 years, and then another 200,000 years, and then another 200,000 years, and so on until we get to another common ancestor that we branched off from, and then we keep going till there's a global bottleneck, and then we keep going back to another common ancestor. Then we go back to the split 7 million years ago, and it showed the average diversity going up, the average. So imagine if I use the maximum numbers, that would be ridiculous. So of course the mitochondria would be completely saturated, and not only would it be saturated, but the differences would be so far more than what we actually see. That's the whole point of what I wanted to go over today. It's really just that simple. So I know they're laughing at the chart and they're laughing at the numbers, but that's also because I didn't clarify much for the chart, because I thought people would understand it, because I've talked about it before. I've made videos on it. I created the chart and I've gone over it. It's in the book. I don't know. So probably my fault. I should have just added 200,000 years right here and then underlined it and then had arrows going to each one. That simple thing would have made this chart much easier. But would they have found something else to complain about? Yes, they would have. So it really doesn't matter anyway, does it? Next, 9 hours, 37 minutes and 6 seconds. They literally admit they don't even know what they're looking at, or what this is, or what my position is. So one of the reasons they're not refuting it is because they don't even know what I'm saying. So am I really that bad at conveying this topic? If so, I'll remake the video. It's pretty simple. I've done it before. Matter of fact, when I did the one that Evograd, or Rational Mind, came in, and when I gave the number 60 as a genetic boundary between humans and chimpanzees, they made an entire video on. So I said, obviously, I'm horrible at conveying what I needed to convey. So I made a video called Genetic Boundaries. Goes completely ignored. So I did a video for the people that asked the question, but didn't actually want the answer. So be it. The video just sits there. At least it's a good video. So at least creationists can have it and have a good argument to what a genetic boundary is. Why does it matter? Why does it show there's no convergence on these so-called common ancestors that they point to? And then things like that. And this chart would be a good addition to that. But regardless, genetic boundaries is very important. And I was using a number to show that the difference. And then so what do? They straw man me and go to other animals and say, look, it doesn't work for fish. It doesn't work for cats. It doesn't work for dogs. Well, no kidding. You ask me specific questions between humans and chimps. I show you the genetic boundary line of what I could use to explain it with. I can do much better now because I wouldn't even give a mutation number. I would just literally show you the sequence between humans and chimpanzees. And I would say, look, the green are, I usually put the green on the top. I don't even know what I'm doing here. That's crazy. Anyway, these sections show mutations. The green show you non-mutation differences between humans and chimpanzees. So if these differences are from non-mutations, then what does that mean? It means when you go back to a global bottleneck, there's no convergence, because convergences only can occur if the sequences are the same in the CO1 gene. And obviously they would agree that, of course, there's no convergence 200,000 years ago in the evolutionary model. Okay, no problem with that. That's great. But that's what we're trying to get to. How many mutations are arising, and then how many are non-mutations, and then how many eons of time do you need for those differences to occur over 7 million years? There should be a lot more. That's the point. And so now I can clarify and saying, look, we're not looking at a particular number. I didn't know very much back then, and I was still gathering the information. Now we can just go to the charts together and work it out. You can run the numbers. Very, very simple. So anyway, I digress. Let's keep going. I haven't even played any of this because I told you, look, here they are talking about something entirely different. Why? They changed the subject nonstop to attack me because they can't argue against this topic. It's case closed. That's why. If Evograd couldn't do it, they sure can't do it. And they're not going to be able to do it. Only a few people on the panel could, and the others are just paperweight. But regardless, what do? They just jump over and they attack like a paper that I was trying to submit to PLO's biology. And when they got the paper, all they did is look at the title and said, nope, not interested, not even going to look at it. So it wouldn't have mattered if it was good or not. They're not looking at it. So that's the whole point. So I tell people all the time, if you think there's no bias in peer review, go ahead and submit your paper. It can even be on evolution. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's in it at all. Just submit it and give it anything young Earth creation title, rejected, sit back, not even looked at it. And just it'll prove my point 100%. Of course there's bias. They're not interested in young Earth creations. People go, why don't you submit? Why? Why would you waste your time when it's not even going to get looked at? It's a complete waste of time. They're not interested. So that's the bias in there. They go on tangents constantly. They deviate from the topic all the time. And I can understand why, but it's ironic that they literally 2.5 hours of my life wasted to find that there was actually no argument. 9 hours, 46:31. Again, still admitting to still not understanding any of my arguments. So why are they saying that it's wrong and they're refuting me? I'll still never know. They literally are admitting in the same video that they don't understand my charts, they don't understand my arguments, and they don't understand what I believe. So if you don't understand the three concepts, why are you reviewing the video? This makes no sense. You're literally just complaining about me and because you don't like me. Well, why don't you just make a video on why you don't like me rather than a video on scientific topics? I mean, can't your audience see through that? That's just doesn't even make sense. Are they that blinded by ignorance that they're like, oh, these are great arguments? There aren't any, and you're literally admitting it. It's insanity. 9 hours, 44 minutes. They're defending why chimps have more diversity, but if it was not confusing for the actual scientist, then they wouldn't state that it was a paradox. It is okay. We already covered this. I'm sorry, I went backwards. 9 hours, 49 minutes, 35 seconds. So what's the cutoff? It literally does not solve the problem. I don't know what I was meaning there. So I said not even Evograd could solve this problem. So what was the cutoff doesn't matter at all. What I showed is what he was. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This is it. So I took an image from Evograd's blog. I'm looking for it now. Sorry, I have a lot of notes, as you can imagine, after years of doing this, making videos. I try to organize, but it's tough. And I can't delete them. I made so many of these. It's so much work. I'm so glad I'm done making videos. Where are you? I'm sorry, everyone. It doesn't usually take me this long to find it. So if this is okay, I'm in the wrong section. Here we go. Okay, so this was pulled from Evograd's blog, and I wanted to fit this on there, so I clipped it from another place and put it right here. So they in the video said, oh, I wonder what's below that line. Did he cut something off to hide it? Oh, yeah, he did. That's not what it says there. I'm not hiding anything. I'm trying to force everything on the screen for once rather than trying to share two different images. What's down here is pointless. And do you know why it's pointless? They know it's pointless too, by the way, because they would have read from it if it was so devastating to me that I needed to hide it. You notice they just said, oh, that's not what was there. And then, oh, they throw up their hands so dramatic. He had it so much. Oh, he's always hiding things. There's nothing there. It's pointless. You can read it. Yeah, I'm not hiding the blog. You can go there and type it in yourself. There's nothing being said. There's no argument against this topic. And so they know that. They would have read it. Believe me. Anything they could do to try to refute me, they would have done. They couldn't do it. 9 hours, 53 minutes. Notice they play an old video where the video against me doesn't understand how I even got the numbers. So I remade an entire 30-minute video called Genetic Boundaries. It's also ignored. I talked about that earlier. The 60 nucleotide sequences was in a direct question asked to me, like, where do you draw the line between humans and chimps? I answer. They go on a tangent about animals, about how I'm wrong, and it doesn't work. Whatever. 9 hours, 59 minutes. More random assertions that Jensen is wrong with his mutation rate, but give no counter to any of the data, just like Evograd. And they need a source for Mendel's accountant. Sure. Well, I mean, Google Mendel's accountant, NIH. It's that easy. There you go. From the NIH itself, for the National Cancer Institute, is using Mendel's accountant. And then he goes, oh yeah, but if you use it on bacteria, it doesn't work because they didn't take into account the fitness level of the bacteria. It's like, well, yeah, it's not made for bacteria. That's literally page 1. If you go on like Creation Ministries International and read page 1 of genetic entropy, it says genetic entropy does not occur in small organisms like bacteria. It's made for whales and mastodon and elephants and human beings, large mammals, not bacteria. It's like he doesn't know. I mean, for somebody that lives their life doing this for the last decade of their life, to gain 300 pounds and lose every ounce of health that they've had, to fixate on evolution versus creation, you think they would understand the basic arguments being said. Pretty crazy, don't you think, to like not even get the basics right? Anyway, then at 10 hours, 2 minutes, I'm sorry, no, 10 hours, 10 minutes, Erica laughing at Standing for Truth for saying Heidelbergensis was Noah. Why wouldn't Noah have robust features that are better suited for living outside in nature, that are like stronger bones, better teeth, like literally everything is physically better about them. Of course they would have. And then we would degenerate into what we see today, which is lazy, sitting inside under lights on a desk all day. I couldn't hang with a Neanderthal or then none of them outside. 10 hours, 11 minutes, 30 seconds. It doesn't fit the biblical timeline. Why not? We are looking at mutations here. We can explain why some populations have more than others. How could Neanderthal and Denisovan have so many? That's a good question. So how would we explain the diversity of life by having Neanderthal, Denisovan, maybe Homo erectus having more mutations? Well, very easy. This is in the literature as well. When populations are smaller, natural selection isn't as strong. So on average, Neanderthals would have had more bad mutations in their genome than modern human individuals. And since we know they live in population sizes around 20, some say smaller, what do you think is going to happen? Mutations are going to be everywhere. They're going to be drifting to fixation faster. They're going to be mutating more rapidly. And that is exactly what we see. And we also know now from the other study that was done that shows that Neanderthal could not even existed in a small population of 20 for even 800 to 1,000 years. So how could they have lived for 400,000 years? The evidence only fits with our model. 10 hours, 13 minutes. Dan said, I need to focus on the more conserved regions. Yes, Dan, that is why I said that after Nathaniel Jensen ran his numbers on the entire mitochondria genome to get this chart, I ran it on the CO1 gene, which is the most conserved regions. It is called the cytochrome C. And you can easily get those. That's why these charts that I made are based off of that. And remember, if you want, and you don't want to look at me, you don't want to believe me, no problem. Don't believe me at all. You can get these numbers directly from either the study in itself. There's the human maximum diversity, and then you can go to Evograd himself that decided to run the numbers and look at the human chart. Here's the humans. He found Homo sapiens have anywhere 0 to 10. He didn't write it in there. Homo Neanderthal 8 maximum, and Denisovan between 18 and 20. So that's not very many, is it? That's double what we are today, and Neanderthal are within the range of humans. No surprise. So why would some of them mutate more rapidly? Smaller populations spreading out more, and Heidelbergensis spread out much more than Neanderthal did. So of course they're going to be in smaller tribes as they populate the land. Very, very simple to answer this in our model. Okay, that's from the other study. Okay, so 10 hours, 27 minutes. You'll notice that they let all of that video play and couldn't address any of it. Oh yeah, so from 10 minutes and 13 seconds to 10 minutes and 27 seconds, they literally let the entire end of my video play and addressed nothing. Then they just roll their eyes, they throw their hands around like kids, and then they skipped it and ran straight to my book, which triggered them big time, because my book is about how to get young earth creation taught in schools. And by the way, it's a bestseller of mine. Just should throw that in there in case they watch this. I'll pull up how many have sold. I was impressed. And that book really triggers them, because remember, this isn't about science. This is because of an agenda that they have. They do not like young earth creation personally. So that is why they attack me and my position rather than the science. And the end of this actually was perfect. So they laugh, they roll their eyes. They say I shouldn't be making custom images, when in reality, my videos, I think, would be completely boring without them. I love making the images for videos because I don't want to sit there and watch boring content. I don't even like radio podcasts a lot of the times because they're so slow. So then they get mad that I cut images up so I can force them into one slide. Then they try to make a big deal out of it, like I'm hiding something, but they don't actually show what I was going to hide because it's irrelevant. So feel free to go read Evograd's blog. Under the highlighted section, there's nothing important. They know it. I know it. So again, they just jump to complaining just to complain because it's all they can do because it's too emotional for them to handle. So after 2 hours, they give no rebuttal to anything. Hand applause to actually Dapper Dino, who didn't even know my position, but at least tried to give an argument. The only person, the only one. Shocking. And he didn't even understand my charts. So kudos to that. They focus most of their time attacking something totally unrelated in two different sections, ignoring the video, ignoring the arguments, which is no surprise. Half their panel would have never been able to address any of it anyway. They're there for paperweight and to have fun and mock and just joke. And the other half were so emotional they need flashcards to stick on their monitor to remind them to settle down and not get worked up. Literally, Dan showed that in the video. He's like, this is what I use so I don't get triggered. Why are you getting triggered? It's like, are you okay? If that's, I can't even like imagine, like you imagine going to the casino and getting like all like, oh, I can't stand casinos. I hate this place. I need medication. You know, it's like, don't go there. I imagine watching the news and the political thing comes on. You see a person in a red hat, they just start losing their mind. Oh man, that's these people. So whatever helps them sleep, right? Dan also admitted on his own channel that he does this for political reasons, mostly because he hates conservatives. Eric admitted that she does this for money. Dapper is live all the time because he hates Kent. They each have their own agenda behind it. None of it's science, so what do I care, right? Fine with me. Conclusion. So we have a video critique on mutation saturation. That's what happens in the last 3 hours of that video. And it was not addressed or refuted by anybody except for Dapper Dino, who didn't even understand what really was going on. So still respect him for trying. The only one who tried was Dapper, who said we need to only go back to maybe 100,000 years to a mythical bottleneck and ignore the last 7 million years of the human line occurring mutations. Why? I'll have no idea. I don't think he thought that through. It's like, okay, so we already recovered that. So then we get to an argument that we should not even consider these mutations because of selection. So just ignore that genetic diversity is increasing and now how fast the mutations are rising, and ignore the evolutionary numbers as well, because that's exactly like what I did is I showed the evolutionary numbers and the evolutionary time frame with those numbers. None of this was young Earth creation. I didn't use Nathaniel Jensen's mutation rate. I didn't use young Earth creation timeframes. I used their own argument against them. And they're always like, look how similar all life is. Well, that's devastating for you. I'm sorry. You really literally want Tompkins' massive genetic diversity on how different we are to be true, because that would help you with deep time. So you saying, we're so genetically similar, that destroys your argument. And that's what you have to contend with. And that's why it's a paradox. So I did not use young Earth creation numbers, mutation rates, nothing. And that's what makes this all so devastating. Anyway, I guess this was a random tangent. I went on for 43 minutes. Man, I wanted to go for 10. Oh, hey, yo, Donnie, what is up, man? What's going on? So that's been covered. Sorry I missed you, Donnie. I would have had you join. We will shoot it next time, and we will cover random stuff and not young Earth creation. I just wanted to go over that critique because I wasted a good 3.5 hours of my life watching a review on our video that literally critiqued nothing. So because I wasted so much of my life, I thought I would share how much of a waste of time it was by showing you how emotional they are over the subject and how they can't even deal with the arguments and how they just want to attack the person at all costs and how they have no good arguments. And just think too, like they have 99% of scientists on Earth on their side, and this is the best they can do. They've got nothing. It's so easy for us. I mean, we should struggle to find arguments. We shouldn't get any predictions correct. If young Earth creation was not true, nothing would point to it. Nothing. Because it's so ridiculous to have a 6,000 to 7,000 year old Earth with humans animals all coming from that time period. There should be no evidence pointing to any of that. But there's so much, and they ignore all of that. They ignore my videos where I take and I randomly push everything together real fast, talking about dendrochronology and the mutation rates and where everything explodes from with new haplogroups, and all of it's ignored. You know, it's astonishing. Like, why? Well, they need to. You know, they want to hyper focus on one specific argument and focus on that because they can distract their audience who want them to be correct and that just don't like young Earth creation for whatever emotional reason they have. That's fine. But if you're just going to do that with everything, then I'm just going to start making every video that just corroborates everything together every single time I make one. And that's it. Then every single person has to see that every single time. And you can't ignore it. It'll just be there every single time. And why not? It's easy to do because everything points to it. I even have my list just right up here. I can access in like a heartbeat. It's so nice to just be able to roll over and go, oh, look at that. Human time frames. Boom. Check this out. Watch how much we have landing on this biblical time frame. So bam, Tower of Babel. Where would we expect genetic diversity to come out of? Well, we would expect it from Africa, right? Because that's where the highest diverse people are when it comes to mutations. But yet, people live there for what, 150,000 years, and then all of a sudden they leave, and that's all of a sudden where the haplogroup explosions are. That's where all the genetic diversity now just explodes exactly with what our model says and where. Get out of here. And then humans waited for 195,000 years before coming up with literally everything. Civilizations popping up everywhere. Brewing, 5,000 years. Mathematics, 5,000 years. Boom, everywhere. Writing systems. 5,000 years yet again. Oh my gosh, look, medicine, 5,000 years. Oldest trees, 5,000 years. Magnetic decay, irrigation, astrology, 5,000 years. Helium diffusion rates, the Homo sapien paradox. They waited 195,000 years before all coming up with the same ideas worldwide at exactly the same time. See how devastating all of this is? They ignore all of that because science is about p-value, statistical probability. How much does everything all together come to point to a bigger picture? When everything, to take it all together and it all points to our model, that's how superior our model is. You see, they like to nitpick. Substitution, a selection probably moves mutations. That'll really slow the clock down. It doesn't even slow it down even remotely to where they need it to be. So they're nitpicking over something that still doesn't save them. See why they nitpick and they hyper focus on one little thing and ignore everything else? Because when you look at the big picture, it shows you that the biblical young earth creation model is true. And that's it. Game over. Anyway, everyone, have a good night. I'm out. Till next time.